Hey everyone, welcome to this 2015 BMW 328xi. This is the Gran Turismo car brought to us by First International Auto Group here in Merrimack, New Hampshire. Before we begin the drive, let's take a look at the exterior of the car. So if you guys have seen my recent videos, you may have noticed that the wind has been kind of crazy here recently. Thankfully, it's not too bad as it picks up and jinxing myself in the video. But here is our 3 Series GT with some gorgeous 18-inch alloy rims. I really love the crazy amount of spokes these wheels have. They're quite gorgeous on this car. So talking about this BMW 3 Series, obviously this is the Gran Turismo model, which basically just means that it's a little higher up and it's got this hatchback, which is quite practical. So in the back here, you can see we have this interesting spoiler, we have the large GT badging, and of course we have our hatch, which I can open from the key fob. And as you can see, we have plenty of room in the back. We have these seats that fold down. We have a little privacy shade, which is nice. And of course, we also have, some extra storage compartments on the left and the right with little bands. I'm kind of keeping my coat locked in there. And then we also have this 12-volt outlet. So the front of this BMW 3 Series basically just looks like that of the regular 3 Series of this generation. They didn't change much as far as the front end styling. It's really just when you look at the side profile and you see that added ride height and you see the hatchback that you're in the Gran Turismo. So getting into these back seats, as you can see, we have plenty of room in this cabin. These rear seats honestly kind of feel like I'm in a 5 Series. And I love this panoramic sunroof we have. It kind of adds some light and even some added roomy feel to this interior. And of course, we have vents back here and heated seats and a 12-volt outlet. Last but not least, we have these cargo nets and speakers. But so overall, these back seats are quite lovely. It feels like a very luxurious ride. You get these nice leatherette seats and plenty of headroom. I will say that if you're maybe about 6'1", 6'2", you might have a hard time fitting in these back seats, but hopefully you are driving anyways. So as we head into the driver's seat, we have keyless entry, which is quite nice. We have these frameless windows, which you can, kind of hear them pull down as you open and close the door. But obviously, it's not a coupe, but I think because of that slopey hatch, they kind of had to design the windows like that. But I think they're pretty nice. And then also before we head into the car, we have this BMW luxury badging. And I will say that badging lives up to its name because this car has so many options inside. All right, so before we begin our drive, some of the standard options in here is we have dual climate control, we have heated seats for me and my front passenger, and of course you guys already saw the ones in the back. And then we have automatic headlights, cruise control, paddle shifters. Basically, you name it, this car has it for a 2015. So this 2015 BMW 328xi GT, lots of words, I know, has a 2-liter inline 4-cylinder that's turbocharged, makes 240 horsepower, 255 pound-feet of torque, and of course we have a curb weight with the all-wheel drive and the Gran Turismo options that make this car just a bit over 4,000 pounds. And so that's a pretty heavy car, especially for this amount of power, so let's definitely check it out and see if that power really translates to the road. So this BMW 328 Gran Turismo has 4 available drive modes: Sport, Sport Plus, Comfort, and Eco Pro. Right now I'm in Sport mode, which, obviously makes those transmission shifts a little more snappy, but overall it doesn't provide a much different feel. And then Sport Plus is basically that, but it turns traction control off, which I really don't want to do. It's a cold day here in New England, so obviously want to keep that on. So this inline 4-cylinder is paired to an 8-speed automatic. I feel like this transmission is pretty smooth, but I feel like there's a little bit of a delay in between shifts. There's definitely some torque loss there, but you know, that's what you're gonna get with a traditional automatic compared to some of the snappier dual clutches we have out today. But don't worry, because performance, you know, this car has a decent amount of it for what you're gonna ask this car to do, which basically is just like a point A to point B comfy daily driver. But what's really important is just how much options and practicality we have in this interior. So of course we have that hatchback, which adds a lot of space to the car compared to the traditional 3 Series. And we have these back seats with, you know, heat. We have heat in these front seats, and they're leather and powered. The front driver has memory. And of course we have dual climate control, which is gonna provide some more comfort to this cabin. So as far as styling of these GTs, I think they look a little funky. It's basically like they just took the 3 Series and said, hey, let's make it a little taller, let's put a hatchback on here and let's call it a day. I feel like they could have changed the front end styling a little bit to pair with that hatchback, but that's okay. All right, so let's talk infotainment. So we don't have Apple CarPlay in here, but we do have Bluetooth, which is gonna do just nicely for you, especially with these awesome speakers this car has. I feel like the audio in here is really great for, you know, an entry-level 3 Series, especially because, you know, this car is almost 10 years old now, and I think the speakers are just as good as my car, which I won't mention in this very moment because that review is not out yet. This car absorbs bumps really well. I feel like it just kind of glides over the road. Really nice ride quality, and also pretty quiet in here as far as sound editing goes. I will say that this steering won't really wow you. I feel like they kind of lightened it compared to some of the other 3 Series I've driven of this generation. Maybe that's just because of, you know, what this car is, because it kind of does feel like the steering of the 2018 Impreza we drove a few months ago. And of course I really don't feel much of the road as far as in the steering wheel itself, but the shape of it is quite ergonomic. We have plenty of buttons to control things in here quite easily, such as obviously our cruise control. We have a mode selector, and we can change up the volume. We can hang up phone calls and use our voice commands, which nobody ever really uses in cars. Comment below if you use your voice commands and if it's helpful, and obviously mention what car you do that in. So we have the iDrive system in this BMW 3 Series. A lot of people have mixed feelings about it, but I've always really liked the system. I feel like the scrolly wheel does really well, it's easy to use, and it's a lot better than these touch screens nowadays. Maybe I'm just kind of, you know, sounding like an old man, but I honestly do prefer to have a physical touch to control my infotainment screen. As far as ports in this interior, we have a USB here in the front, we have an auxiliary port, and we have a traditional 12-volt right below our infotainment stack. So what's funny about this car and some of my recent videos is I've been talking a lot about the auto start stop functions, especially that in like the BMW M340i we reviewed. Funny enough, this 2015 3 Series also has auto start stop. However, you can leave it off and it remains off. So perfect, wouldn't change a thing. So as far as interior quality, we do have a lot of high quality buttons in here that share, you know, parts with higher trim models of BMWs, which I really like. We also have paddle shifters on this wheel, which they're really high quality, like aluminum. They're hard, very firm, and quite easy to use as well. So regarding seating, we obviously have power adjustments and memory, as I said before, and these leatherette seats are quite comfortable. I found it really easy to get a nice driving position for myself. And of course, you know, we have plenty of visibility. I'd say where you're most compromised is that C-pillar, just because of this obviously being a hatchback. All right, so let's check out the worst road in Merrimack, New Hampshire, going at about 20 miles an hour. I'm actually very impressed with the car. I felt like it handled the bumps just as good as like maybe even that S-Class we drove. I feel like the suspension is quite soft in here, and it really, you know, handles the hard bumps well. So our gauge cluster in this car is very traditional. We have analog gauges for everything, including our tachometer, speedometer, oil temp, and gas. Overall, really nice. And we just have this little digital screen to indicate like our battery charge, and of course our mileage and miles left on our tank. All right, so we have a rear view camera here. We have a right hand side mirror that folds down to look at our wheels, make sure you don't scratch them on a curb, and of course a pretty high quality backup camera. No complaints there. So our 8-speed automatic transmission does pretty well on its own, but we do have a gear selector if you want to play around. But honestly, I feel like my way I would drive this car is to just leave it in comfort, leave the automatic transmission to do its own job, and just kind of enjoy the comforts and practicality of the 3 Series GT. So if you're looking for a BMW 3 Series and you would really like a hatch and that added space for cargo, I feel like this is the car for you. You know, I will say that I don't personally enjoy the looks of these, but someone might. And of course, the old saying for cars is that you don't look at the exterior of the car, you can't see it when you're driving. So to wrap up my thoughts on this car, I feel like it has all the luxury and comfort and even a little more than the traditional 3 Series. It almost kind of feels like a 5 Series when you get in those back seats just because of all the room. But with that being said, you know, I think if you're looking for a car with a hatchback that has a lot of comfortable options and a nice sunroof, heated seats, a nice ride, I think this is a car for you and an option you should consider. But with that being said, please like, please subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.